a world-class faculty and programs, including 3 book prizes, community-based workshops, a poets tour representing 70 fellows, a reading series, and more. Tonight, Cave Canem's community grows even larger with this wonderful opportunity to be with you at Howard University's WHUT studios. We are grateful for the generosity of Howard University, especially Dana Williams, Sharon Drayton, Celeste Crenshaw, Janet Campbell, Reese Bland, LaTanya Winters. Thank you. Thanks to WHUT and our glowing MC, Katie Ritchie, and of course, all of you. Shouts out to Kyla Marshall and Jason Smith for helping with the program. An exciting evening of poetry is ahead of us. But before we start, let's have a moment of silence for Cave Canem fellow Monica Hand, who passed away on December 16th, 2016, and in whose memory we dedicate tonight's reading. This evening will be emceed by DC-based fellow Katie Ritchie and her baby bump. Katie's work has appeared in Rattle, The Offing, and other journals. She is the recipient of a 2014 Maryland State Arts Council Individual Artist Award. Additionally, Katie was a finalist for the 2015 Cave Canem Poetry Prize. Please welcome Katie Ritchie. Hi, I'm Katie. Can everybody say hi, Katie?
Hi, Katie.
I'm so happy to be here hosting. Thank you for allowing me to host you this evening. Welcome to the DMV. Welcome to my home. Please excuse the mess made by our new occupants. We're trying to clean it up. It might take us a while, 4 years or so. I do have a question. Is Cave Canem in the building? How about CCDC? The more you count too.
Yeah.
Just to it's really hard for me to explain what my Cave Canem experience meant to me. I grew as a writer, as a human. The folks that I met there have become lifelong friends. Cave Canem is family. I'm sure you all agree. In fact, I'm so Cave Canem. I'll tell you how Cave Canem I am. I still make 10 copies of all my drafts. I'm so Cave Canem that, like, around 10 o'clock in the morning, I feel like there's something I haven't done. And I turn something in, I'm so Cave Canem that Rough Magic is going to be my wedding band. Cornelius Edie's band. No, Cornelius, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm also so Cave Canem that every time I read a new poem, I try to make one of those Chris Abani line graphs with the lyric and the narrative, and here's the artifact, and then I put a little smiley face because I don't really know what I'm doing. So that's how Cave Canem I am. And our first featured reader this evening is also very Cave Canem. Born and raised in Compton, California, educated at Howard University and Cornell University, Ahmad Jamal Johnson is the author of 2 collections, Darktown Follies and Red Summer, a former Wallace Stegner Fellow in Poetry at Stanford and a Cave Canem Fellow. His honors include the Hurston Wright Legacy Award, the Dorset Prize, and a Pushcart Prize. His work has appeared in Best American Poetry, Callaloo, Narrative Magazine, The Southern Review, and elsewhere. He directs the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing and serves as the Halls Bascom Professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He is so Cave Canem. He honeymooned at Cranbrook, which is the second location where Cave Canem retreats were held. So he got hitched and then celebrated at CC. That's pretty Cave Canem. Please welcome Ahmad Jamal Johnson.
Well, I'm so happy to be home. I graduated class of '96. Howard has changed a little bit. Some trees have been cut down, some things have been rearranged, but the vibe's still there. It's still great kind of walking down Georgia Ave, so it's great to be back. I thought I'd begin with a Howard poem, actually. if you know Amir Baraka, he was a master mythmaker, and he used to tell this story about hanging out in front of the administration building, eating a slice of watermelon. And an administrator comes out and essentially says, you know, what the hell are you doing? You know, you're kind of embarrassing us and maybe embarrassing the race. And, you know, Baraka used to, you know, kind of tell the story saying that he threw the watermelon rind at the administrator and stormed off campus. And this was kind of the beginning of his radical identity. There's sometimes like a tension between Howard students and the administration. Leroy eating watermelon at Howard. Better dead. Better to dig up and foul poor Booker's bones, or pluck the pearl buttons from the good doctor's waistcoat, than undo all that fine book learning. What rancor, boy? What black and wooden alchemy would bring you into the clear light? Seed spitting, meat, juice, smattered about your mouth and neck. Better to petition fools. Better doxologize a devil even than abandon the good sense God gave a chimp. This here is the whole caboodle, capstone of Negro education, and you, collar undone, hair in pothooks, teeth damn near gnashing at the rhyme. Son, I aim to write down your name. Obviously, he changed his name from Leroy Jones to Amir Baraka. So. This next poem is after Charles Burnett's film, Killer of Sheep, just based on a scene from that film. This bitter earth. Again, against this late afternoon, backlit, two-stepping, wheeling ourselves golden while Dinah sings. Lint stutters the needle, and she's stitching another one, like a string of silk bluebells across my lower back and into my shoulder. Hog-tied, my eyes yoked to a blank space on the wall. But sometimes a woman is without pity. Her nails soft pedal. How she won't give me quarter. Pitching her hips. Saying, can't you just shake loose that goddamn stone? Can't you just get yourself soft for me, baby, for just a little while? Then, so loud, repeatedly, the way she keeps saying nothing. My last poem references Fred Williamson. He was in I Wanna Get You Sucker. You know, like you may kind of remember him from his like Big Gun in the 70s. Fred Williamson stars as the Hammer. And yes, I'm perfectly aware of the dollop of cream I've neglected and exactly where it's stationed. But imagine how sudsy my mustache becomes while I'm assailing the thick head of another ice-cold beer. Or how rumpled my chest hair might appear after one of those spontaneous halftime bubble baths. Of course, I dislocated each fat finger. I piss out daily at least a flask of sweet black blood. On the gridiron, I was the safety valve, a kill switch. The blade holstered tastefully against the braces supporting your raw silk socks. Fuck John Henry. I've acquiesced my body to a game of hazards. If the anvil seeks, I lick my lips and I'll whistle.
Our next featured reader, Jump the Boogie, finalist for the Kate Tufts Art Prize, the J. Endowment for the Arts, the Breadloaf Writers Conference, Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, Canem Foundation, and the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing. Scared of you, John? He teaches at Hampshire College and New York University. He did not share with me how Cave Canem he is, but he is married to our new executive director. That's pretty Cave Canem.
I've never spoken to anyone about this until now. I slept once in the night jars watching over me. The first time he had not touched her so. But I only knew her to wave hello. I talked to her once, halfway up the road, which is to say there was no river. And our way they found her, that was real, as on our walk. Periwinkle, she called it. I called it blue, blue with bright yellow flowers all over. The dress and the flowers, they too were real. And on our walk, I remember we cut through the rail yard and came upon a dead coyote lying near the tracks. A frail and dusty heap of regret, he was companion to no one. We stared at it for some time, our shadows stretched long and covering the animal. She said something I'd remember for years about loneliness, but have long forgotten. The way I've forgotten, though I can see her face as if she were standing right here, her very name. Let's call her Dolores, from dolor, Spanish for anguish. And whatever the sky, however lovely that afternoon, I remember mostly the wind, how a breeze unraveled what was left of a braid, and when I tried to brush from Dolores's brow a few loose strands, how she flinched, how she ran the rest of the way home, how I never saw her after that, except when they carried her from the barn. Her periwinkle dress, her blue legs and arms, and the fields ablaze with daisies. I spent the rest of that summer in the rail yard with my dead coyote, watching trains loaded and leaving. All summer long I'd pelt him with stones. All summer long I'd use the stones to spell the girl's name, Dolores maybe, in the dirt. All summer long, fire ants crawled over and between each letter, her name now its own small town. A season of heat and heavy rains washed my coyote to nothing, only teeth and a few stubborn bones that refused finally to go down. Weeks into autumn, someone found the father hanged from the same groaning tie beams, the hayloft black with bottleflies. But that was 1983, Ontario, California, which is to say the bottleflies are dead, so too the ants, and neither field nor barn is where I left it. I've never spoken to anyone about this until now, until you. I gathered a handful of my coyote's bones, his teeth, and strung them all on fishing wire. A talisman to ward off anguish. A talisman I hold out to you now. Come closer. Please, take this from my hand. So, I got that from Jericho. You read first and it's dramatical that way. It's good to be here. I was telling Tony the first reading I actually ever gave was here at Howard. The first good reading I gave was actually with Brand. We went to this place out in Baltimore called Zando's. But I was in this group called Ubiquity here on campus. And we had an event over at Blackburn Center. And this is my first poem I'd ever written, and it wasn't done yet, so I had written half of it. And I figured since when I was little, I used to freestyle a lot. So what I would do is when I get up here, I'd read the first half and just freestyle. And I tried it, and y'all know how it went. So, so I'm kind of nervous being in the space again. All right, I'm gonna read just one more poem, and it's dedicated to y'all. And this week you're gonna have AWP. It's called Contemporary American Poetry. Another Monday, and you're out with some poets, one of whom maybe you has just given a reading. And it's summer, and it's Brooklyn, or it's the village, and it's winter, and you've landed at some dusty dive bar, crowded around an 8-top to order wings, shots, and whatnot, when halfway down the table you hear one poet congratulate a second on some prize or another, while a third sulks, sips his gimlet, and pretends not to listen. And the fourth mumbles something about not being notified his application was even received, and how you have to be gay or black or both to win anything these days. And the fifth poet pushes a plate of nachos toward you and asks what you think about the state of contemporary American poetry. And before you can answer, a sixth pries in, mishearing, of course, the last few syllables, and waxes cerebral, something about Don Share or plowshares or maybe even timeshares. And on the television mounted hanging overhead, an anchor woman's mouthing the muted news of another boy shot dead in black in some city now burning. And the police chief promises a thorough investigation. And a Yemeni woman is burning, splashed with acid for loving who she chooses. And everywhere you think is burning, burning, and yes, you hear a graduate student quip between slurps about a newly dead master. I tried to like his work, may he rest in peace, but try as I might, I found him too accessible. Another Monday, and it's summer in Brooklyn. Or it's the village and winter. You're with the poets, one of whom, the political poet, the outsider poet, has brought along a selfie stick. You put your shot glass to your mouth. What's inside is burning, burning. Everybody now, squeeze in tight. Everybody now, say cheese.
Yes, John. Great. Our final featured reader is a native Washingtonian, now living in exile in Chicago. She's a fellow from the Esopus Days, 1997 to 1999. She develops curricula and incorporates poetry across content areas. Her work can be seen in anthologies and online. Please welcome Toni Asante Lightfoot.
Will call my name? Who will elevate my soul? Who will call my name? Come on, children, won't you call my name? It was 19-something, and I was in a basement in Boston, and I put my hand up against the wall. They said it was once a stop on the Underground Railroad. And a story jumped out at me. This man came to me and said, please go down to Dorchester, Maryland, and tell my daughters I did not abandon them. I died here. And they have done all kinds of things because they think that I am not here for them, that I went on to freedom without them. Please go and let them know that I am their future. They have given birth to me over and over and over again, but they keep treating me like I wasn't there for them. Let them know, the first one, she doesn't have to find no more men to replace me, that I was there the first time she gave birth to that boy. Let the second one know that all the women she chose instead of men were wondrous. And I'm sorry about the man that took her and gave her another me that she didn't recognize. And that last one, the baby girl who was just a baby when I left, let her know that I thank her for not having memory of me, that she raised me so well again and again. And tell them the past needs to be forgiven. because the future is nothing but the past trying to better itself, trying to rebirth itself. Let us know that we should hear more than wind in the wind. I'm speaking again. Let them know there's so many names to call. Who will call their names? Who will elevate their souls? Who will call their names? Like Lucille Clifton, like Monica Hand, like my brother, like my grands. Come on, children, won't you call their names? Born and bred in Washington, D.C., and even though I wasn't at that first reading that John Murillo gave, he did actually come to me because I actually had a little poetry reading called It's Your Mug, where a bunch of us, like Monica Hand and Brandon Johnson, all kinds of folks, I think Hayes might have stopped by for a second before we closed down. We came up with some poems, we came up with some poetry, and people came on out and had a really good time. And John, once upon a time, came up to me and asked me how to write a good poem. I ain't gonna say nothing else to that because y'all laugh just like y'all supposed to. Anyway, so here I am in D.C. now, even though I have been forced to exile myself to Chicago. So here it is. Exiled by forced history. I come from a people who move. I come from a people who stay. I have moved and I have stayed. My grandfather moved 13 brothers and sisters from South Carolina to D.C. Don't ask Washington, ain't no other. B.C., that's Canada. There ain't no other. And this is where I start my story tonight. In 1920, this man gave up the Klan, gave up his brothers and sisters all in one night to the North. Because the Klan came and said, move or we kill another one tomorrow. And so, for another 50 years, we couldn't visit that land because it became what? Theirs. Golf courses, beachfront property. Oh, and the ever-present church. Yes, you will not be able to come back. And so Granddaddy said he was from South Carolina and he was going to stay from South Carolina. Grief can make the soil too hard to touch again. Lose a beloved brother to dastardly deeds. Lose the deed to bastards who once sucked their sustenance from your mama's teat. Yeah. Then you understand that grief can migrate from eyes to heart, and that the heart in Chinese medicine ends in the hand, and if that hand turns into a black fist, you don't get to see your children born. And so he moves. Now my grandmother, on the other hand, she has a very different story. She, the last born to a woman who dies to her birth. This one gets to live in South Carolina only till she's 6. Moves here at 1910. And sure enough, when you die, your other family takes in your children. And that's what happened. So by 1920, when Granddaddy comes with a church, Grandmama finds herself a husband. And even though they lived 2 miles apart when they were born, they didn't know each other till they moved so far away. That's my mama's side. My dad, well, his people who still occupy the land they did before Columbus had lost his way, they own what they can. They tell the story of burning down a courthouse twice on Old Courthouse Road. My blood still burns at injustice. His people look whiter than many whites, but they don't truck with the blood of those who entered the family by force and not love. Theirs is a story of educational migration. Some traveled far to add letters to their names so that they could have jobs that they actually have as vocation. Theirs is a story to make do with what you got, even though it's all yours anyway. I'm a light-skinned woman from a dark-skinned city turned vanilla. I'm from here. I got history here. And even though my branches grow in Chicago, I can't stay away from here. I'm Tony Asante Lightfoot. Thank you. And this last little piece is just, we do haiku every day. I don't know if you've seen the little app. I've been advertising on poetry, stations all around. But it's called A Daily Mug, and mug stands for Modern Urban Griot. We want your poems. And so we do a little haiku here and there. And this is an old one that I used to do over at It's Your Mug back in the day. But if you have haiku, blackjacks, low-ku, as Amir Baraka would say, we want them. And so here's the little one that I was taught how to perform as a haiku. And it's called Lollipop Blues. This is just for fun. He used to lick my, he used to lick my face. He used to lick my face. I thought it cute. He used to lick my face. I thought it cute to him. He used to lick my face. I thought it cute. To him, I was a sucker.
So we will now enter the CC tradition of the rapid fire reading from our fellows, old and new. Poets, 4 minutes. That includes your explanation of how you created the performance, the cross between the sestina and the bop and the haiku, all together, all that all goes in 4 minutes. Rocky, who you met earlier, is no Amanda Johnston, but he will let you know when you only have a minute or two left, 20 seconds probably left. So you ain't got to go home, but you got to get your poems and get up off this stage when you see that. Our first reader writes to breathe. Please welcome Abdul Ali.
So, at the Canem retreat last year, I met this poet named Quincy Scott Jones with the Maxwell Blowout. And I remember we were talking about poems we wanted to write, and he said, Abdul, I want to write a poem about trees without a lynching. So this is for Quincy Scott Jones. I want to write a poem without trees, without a lynching. None of this is real. Not waking to deer roaming outside our window, the different breeds of bark secreting its own sap, poems flowing before 10 each morning, and these long summer nights and the ring shouts. If only this week could be every week, to be a part of this beautiful watercolor dripping everywhere. Take this all in, brother, poet, lover of Gil Scott Heron. City of asylum, this city of asylum where no one is lonely or hunted. May you stretch this week over and over and keep it for safekeeping. May we be free black bodies living among these free black and brown trees, if only till midnight. Carl's Barbershop. The peppermint stripes spinning, the shaving cream, the crowding around the television, the razor, the photo of Malcolm X and Dr. King, the Coca-Cola machine that still accepts dimes, the radio playing the oldies, the trash talking, the nobody can touch Otis Redding and that's a fact, Jack, the bullet hole, the empty chair, the phase, the rust-colored tile, the high-top fades, the baby photos, the pointing. That's my little girl when she was a baby. The neighborhood, everything changing, the slopes, the frohawks, the hieroglyphs, the scissors slicing the air, the fragrant coconut afro sheen that makes you choke each time. You never complain. The parts, the small rectangular handheld mirror, the vanity, the 1-2 look Vogue, the folded 20 plus 5, the handshake, the pause.
Thank you, Abdul. Our next reader feels inspired by Henri Jeffers and Larry Van Cleef Stefanen, who in herself is so beautifully Canem. Please welcome Crystal Boson.
Hi, everyone. I am a Texas poet who always writes about Texas, and my poems are like my body. They're short and dense. They're really dark matter, so settle in. What it is to be a white man. Come on outside and bring the good knife. Pick a pig, any pig. Learn to kill. A sweet thing that can't harm you. God willin' and the creek. Granddaddy paid for this land, and these trifling ass levees can't hold in a piss. We got water, rot, and no floor. We ain't leaving this house. Crawdads in the carpet mean we ain't gonna starve. So go on and wait out the rain. We can't move on out what the devil moves in. Water bearer. 10 years ago they taught us that folks ain't gonna help you. So you best keep ready a strong bottom plastic tub that's big enough to hold bread and clothes and babies for when the floodwaters come. Quick aside, I got shipped to Oregon for 1 year and came right on back. So, Oregon, goddamn. If you had loved me, you wouldn't have sent me north. They got no blood, got no salt, got no scripture, no teeth. There ain't anything here. Settling in is a fire ant on the meat part of your thigh. Heading out is the devil, about to lay hands on his wife. And I got one more for y'all, my favorite, backsliding. Mostly rains hard when you're sleeping. Comes down mean as the branch peeled green down to a switch, waiting for an ass by the back porch. We can't baptize in floods. This here ain't a sprinkle. This here ain't a dunk. Seems like God is a woman who cooks hate grits at night.
So our next poet is trying to get me in trouble. He is so CC that he knows that Dante Michaud's best poems are tucked inside the trash he talks during space. And
I originally know. And I wrote about the men I know, my family. Both after. For Mississippi, you climbed the sword, lip on headboards like the rims of bottles that squeal murder and juke joint cellars over broken ribs, on limp paper plates that bend in the middle of sex, like the backs of slow, dragging lovers eating pig ear blues. From hot aluminum trays and popping hip bones, you stream for the wine. Wolf, you sung smoke, lethal like the knives that sprung from pockets and then spring from paws to deadly shine. When lovers wander into the half-moon-shaped cut across the surface of the cheek of your cerulean blue howl. Wolf, you midnight peacock, pecan black hound. You can hide in corners for only so long before you crow your canine teeth. Like the rooster raised as a dog, with a pocket full of rent money to blow once his numbers hit. But why? Sailor after Jeremy. An old man lights a cigarette. Heat breaks as he waits for another whiskey, and the wind of that motion lingers in the swipe of how I-95 thinks it's a straight line when it's only a relic of how the air would have it be. Living space for the next whiskey, the next body, the next life, the next beat he pins. Open, and he will enter until he remembers he hasn't changed his drawers and socks in 3 days. And he thinks of years of how eager fingertips melted his pith, have melded hooks on the borders of his bounded surround. He needs more than whiskey to join the evergreens. He is lost at sea. He misses those moments of roaming through the unbounded wilderness, closing traps and leaving sweet notes for hunters, setting fires in erratic patterns, trapping life in haste, borrowing songs for the journey, past the gate of someone's teeth. He is lost. When the whiskey comes, he will sniff bird shit by the river. He will sit on a bench and steal the pivots for a bridge. He will come at the world with remarkable steam. He will scream in heaps and process the wade. He will rot like wood and spit in his own howl. He will spread like a rash in bitter shadows, and he will drum fresh water and lean into metal. When it comes, he will imagine being clean. There will be no drink or sea. He will remember to set sail for the woods. He will remember why he is so far from land and how the world became to be in the first place. Thank you.
All right, CC, we good at poems. Thank you, Ron. How do you introduce Mahogany Brown? You don't. You just get out the way of brilliance. That's right. You just get out the way. I will say, Mahogany is so Canem. In my last year, she put cookies into the feast, so I appreciate that. Please welcome Mahogany Brown.
If 2017 was a poem title, 1. When they turn bodegas into boutique grocery stores, when they bounce cops up the block like this hipster protection program won't turn back left frack into Harlem, turn back Harlem into Chirac, turn back Bed-Stuy into Brownsville, turn Brownsville back into the Bronx, back bitter American history. Where the mom and pop work more, where the pesticides overflow our sewer systems, float our neighborhoods until food deserts, one way in, one way out. Tell me this gentrification be for my own good. Tell me this housing project kept us warfare ready. Tell me Biggie died for our sins, and I'll show you a Brooklyn stoop with the baby's name etched in chalk, a hashtag ghost gone already, a price tag on his sister's face. She's been missing since Sunday. Where chopper lights paint concrete, a trail of breadcrumbs, a haunting, finding its way back to our homes. 1. The Electoral College is a lullaby designed to put us back to sleep. 1. The ocean is weeping a righteous rage. She got questions for the living. And what about the sweetheart who would grow to love Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Corinne Gaines, Akai Gurley? What about their mama singing the name before each breakfast? Or the church praying for their redemption, Bibles raised in the air? What about their almost children? How about their daddy's smile? What about their name make them so easy to turn to ash? How we ghosting black boys for the toys we give them? 1. On Monday, a white body told my black body it ain't earned no apology for the bloodshed. For the nights when my skin grows so cold, I know I must be inches from death. For each death hand delivered to me, this silence, this certain dismissal, this post-racial reality TV show, this Confederate hug, and don't it bloom like a mushroom sky? What about the blues? Why it cry like hell? Why it hail like America so long? 1. Yo, America, what you know about Noose Ready? What you know about chalk lines and double barrels? What you know about a murder weapon or a loose cigarette or a baby sleeping on a couch? What you know about the flag, the truck that followed me down a lonely road in Georgia? The names that I wrote off my tongue in prayer: Saint Sojourner, Saint Harriet, Saint Rakia, Saint Sandra, bring me home. Or leave me steady, gun aimed and cocked ready, con artist turned 45th resident of the White House, while the 44th president is lifted off the grounds by his shadow and his black wife. She side-eye all day, she cheekbone slay, while the media aim and shoot at president's legacy until weed smoke and a concert make us forget black people ain't never been human here anyway. Ain't we beautiful? Those that survived the purging, Those that spill blood splay beautiful from a hateful song. This swing, sweet, sweet low. Spiritual ain't never been inclusive. What you know about larynx and baton. How you sing him crow in the key of Emmett. What fever fuss you awake. Who else got cop anxiety? Call it what it is. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Call it land tax until homeless. Call it abortion turned sterilization. Ain't no lie like the one against our stillborn. Ain't no lie like the many that shaped our babies into mute cattle. Prison industrial complex reverberates in the turn of elementary. Prison industrial complex reverberates in the tune of elementary school. Fourth graders are the easiest targets. 1, a math problem. If one woman got a 7 Mac 11 and 2 heaters for the Beamer, how many Congress seats will NRA lose? How many votes will it take for a sexual predator to lift the White House off her feet? 1, I am aiming this tongue a shoestring strafe. My tongue say melt the wires of Guantanamo. Yasin Bey, coming home ain't what we thought it would be. Ain't no solace in Mecca. Even Spike Lee left Brooklyn. Here, a slumlord will leave my front steps full of rat piss and Airbnb my neighbor's apartment for half my pay. Half my take-home pay, unhinge the city of Rikers, bring back the reapers, give them the loot and the stoop. Yeah, they good at killing, but so was Jefferson. I mean, Washington, I mean, CIA, I mean, COINTELPRO, I mean, they mimic your grace. I mean, it's 2017, America, a new year, and your facelift be botched.
Our next reader is Sokabe Canem. Our next reader is Sokabe Canem. She reps Esopus, Cranbrook, and Greensburg. Those are all the retreat locations. She's also my poetry collective sister. Please welcome Terry Cross Davis.
Hey, Cece.
Hey.
These first two are for Prince Rogers Nelson. And these are, I've been writing a lot of little, just 4-line ditties for Prince. And these come from a little collection of rarities and B-sides. This is called We Can Funk. This is the jewel box version. There are many. We Can Funk. Unbridled, what can we destroy between our minds, mouths, and fingers? I could worship the taste of you. Just close the door. Shockadelica. Funky and unrepentant, you unmake me with a groove so dark, so delicious, I savor its taste from your guitar pick. And then this, just very quickly, this is from my boy, August Ellison. And this is called, he just turned 6 yesterday. Gus. And this is called Thank You, Jesus. And also, this is from my husband, Hayes Davis, who reps Cabe Canem 96, 97, 98. Thank you, Jesus. When the blue and red sirens pass you, when the school calls because your child beat the exam and not a classmate, when the smartphone drops but does not crack, the rush escaping your mouth betrays your upbringing. Thank you, Jesus. A balm over the wound. When the mammogram finds only density, when the playground tumble results in a bruise, not a broken bone, like steam from a hot tea kettle, thank you, Jesus, and the pent-up fear vents upward, out. Maybe it's a hand over breast, supplication learned deeper than flesh, as if one could shush the soul, the fluttering heartbeat with 3 words. Maybe it's not so dire, an almost trip on the sidewalk, the accumulated sales total showing savings upon savings. Maybe it's as small as an empty seat on the metro, or maybe, thank you, Jesus, becomes the refrain every time of a grandmother who gave you your first Bible. You say it because your mother, even knowing your doubt as a vested commodity, still urges prayer. You learned early to cast the net. Thank you, Jesus. And it's a sweet needle that gathers the fraying thread, hemming security in steady stitches. From birth, you've heard this language. As an adult, you've seen religion used nakedly as ambition, yet this sacrifice of praise still slips past your lips, this lyrical murder of your dying faith. Thank you.
I would not really, truly would not have survived my first year at Canem without this next reader. And the fact that I am one of many people who could say that speaks to her.
Okay, so I'm, 12, we read our dead into the record. Remember, my heart beats, throat pulsing, pound after pound, flesh distorted with you, alien. Someone told me once that every child leaves a bit behind to circulate, to incorporate, to diffuse and perfuse throughout a mother's body. I feel you, small bits of DNA perfusing me like a virus, like Sunday mornings splay-legged, back aching, you pressing against my pelvis, insistent, an urgent need to evacuate prematurely. Remember, I love you, always, baby, in always, baby. You changed me forever. I can eat melon now. Before I gagged on the grassy green smell like too much nature rising through my throat, guts flipping forward and up and out. Also, like your father, you love fish, salmon, trout, even halibut, the one with both eyes facing up to watch for predators. I never ate fish before I carried you. Remember, I love you always, in always, baby. Then, a month before you are due, they say, like you are a bill from the light company or AT&T that I forgot or might forget to pay. You hook a foot around some soft part of me and it hurts. I love you always, in always, baby. The night you leave me for brighter passages, for doctor's hands sliding you forward, twisting you around and around and around, because you insist, grip really, the cord between us with shoulder and armpit and tiny little elbow, grasping for another moment within me. I like to believe, I cry, bless you, that life treats you kindly, that God always finds you, that you always see clearly, that you know kindness and joy, happiness. Remember, I love you always, in always, baby. The title for this poem is taken from a story I read years ago about a young girl who died in foster care. She had been taken from her mother as an infant, and the only thing she was left with was her name. Remember, I love you always, Rilia. Sorry. Rilia, I remember, always, in always, baby. Thank you.
Our next reader is Sokavi Canem. She keeps all her poems on a USB thumb drive. I do too. And Safia, this is a bad idea. We need to stop this. Please welcome Safia Al-Filil. A Brief History of Silence, or The Last Time Marvin Gaye Was Heard in the Sudan. At the Musicians Club in Omdurman, a singer is stabbed to death for playing secular music. The month before, a violinist on his way home is beaten by police, his instrument smashed to matchwood. All the bars in Khartoum are closed down. All the alcohol in Khartoum poured into the Nile. A new law forbids women from dancing in the presence of men. Another bans song lyrics that mention women's bodies. And at a party in Omdurman, lights strung among the date palms, my not yet mother, honey legs in a skirt, opens her mouth and the night air is the gap in her teeth.
She sings in the lilting English to a slow song, while bodies around her pair off and press close. Before he is my father smokes a cigarette and shows all his teeth when he laughs. Wants to ask the dark gold girl how her English got so good, what the words mean, and could he sing something sometime into the gap in her teeth. But first, police arrive, rip lanterns from trees, and fire a shot through the final notes of the song. And tonight, my parents do not meet. Third quarantine with Abdel Halim Hafiz. Summer unclean and humid. Air a fat piece of velvet draped over my body. And despite the pills meant to firm up my blood, I faint. I am old-fashioned. This time on the 103rd Street subway platform, and a stranger reads to me from his paperback to keep me awake until the ambulance arrives, looks at my rounded set of features, and won't believe I am not a child. I don't know. I can't remember. Either he said, "Your grandfather's sisters never learned to read or write. They made poems committed to memory, and the poem died with the body." Or he said, "You should take better care. What I've seen does not live forever, and I thought I'd be older before starting to ask, what if I die? What happens to everything I haven't yet said?" Halim sings, "Stay here with me. Take one of my eyes and come back to see me, or take them both and ask after me. From the very first day, I haven't been able to sleep, and I want to sleep, but I want to stay, and I get lost in wanting. I forget to breathe."
Thank you, Safia. Our next reader is Sokabe Canem. He's gone over 4 minutes twice. Not tonight, George. We're watching you. Give it up for George Higgins.
Whoa. Does this count? Wow. I'm going to read one poem tonight, one short poem. What? Can you hear me to make sure? I had a true Cave Canem experience today. I spent all day writing all these crazy political poems, and people were turning into cockroaches and everything else, and I'm not going to read any of those poems. A friend of mine said that some person is getting a little bit too much attention, and I tend to agree. At least with what's going on in our politics in the world, at some point I've just turned off the television. And no offense to Howard, what TV. So I'm going to read this. What I get so much nourishment is what's going on right here tonight. And so I'm going to read this short poem. It's in haiku stanzas, and there's a one-word inscape in it. It's Gerard Manley Hopkins' word about, I guess, your authentic self, or going inwards and finding that. Anyway, unwatchable. If I turn off the television, disconnect the DSL, and cancel my paper, rent a cabin in the woods for 8 years plus or minus a month, pop Ativan and meditate, go gluten-free, avoid all other human contact, grow some beans, wear sound-canceling headphones, sleep under an oxygen tent inside a fallout shelter, pretend I live in Middle Earth or Xanadu, go into the stacks, research the origins of pie, examine flower petals, bees, eat a few persimmons slowly enough to notice the pulp. In other words, escape by inscape. Will I endure the next 2 terms? I have my doubts. In emergencies, there's no time to waste. To find relief, read these poems. Thank you.
Our next poet is inspired by the love and support of the poets in this community. Please welcome Daryl Holmes.
Hello, hello, everybody. How are you guys? So, this poem is was selected by Monica Hand for Word Piece, and so every time I read it, I think about her. It's dedicated to the 70,000 Central American kids who were walking to the U.S. border in 2012, and unfortunately were mostly deported. And so I think about them, and I think about the refugees and people like my mother who sent me to this country to, I don't know, do something amazing. Hopefully write this poem. So this is called Poder. The difference between poetry and rhetoric is being ready to kill yourself instead of your children, wrote Audre Lorde. I say this now to the mothers who sent their children north, risking their babies' lives for a better living than chasing paper or running from drug dealers on the streets. The difference between art and design means being ready to die for what you desire others to achieve through your work. Hours of your life gone forever, making a little shiny, fragile thing. I write to the mothers who send their children north, never knowing if they'll make it, but hoping that even if they don't, their creations might mean more than just the flesh and bone with which they're made, because they moved, because they desired. So many are quick to dismiss desire as too general a word, or this language as too simple to power the constant thrust towards betterment we call life. But poetry is sometimes made of such things. Words used so often we take them for granted and forget their power is in how they unite existence through a common tongue. In Spanish, the word for power is the same as the word for I can, poder. One simple word banging the drum rhythm made by children's souls thumping against the earth. Poder, poder, poder. The power of doing in each disyllabic step of metric feet, moving us farther and farther away from the word being just rhetoric into the structure of its design, where we find the power to turn suicide into sacrifice, the power to turn beast into man, and man into martyr or miracle. This is what makes miracles. A desire path stretching 1,700 miles, through an armed border wall, through electric barbed wire fences. A surge surmounting all odds to rise beyond the stratosphere. Knowing this too is poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Our next reader is Sokavi Canem. They applied for the first time when they were only 15 years old. Give it up for Taylor Johnson.
That's true about me. I didn't get in, so yeah. I have to pee a lot. Sorry. I'm gonna make this quick. Just drink a lot of tea. Yeah. Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast. Bless the boys riding their bikes straight up at midnight, touching, if only briefly, holding hands as they cross the light to independence. Bless them, for from the side, the one on the red bike looks like me, his red-brown hair loose against the late summer static heat. The boy who is not me, see how I did that, fixes his mouth to say something I will never hear. I love you, or I'm so sad, though, more than likely, catch up. Bless the boy who is me on his bike because he was a witness to my witnessing and did not turn away, did not make of me a disappeared, burned thing. Instead, nodded as boys do. Bless the distance and the knowing there. What my mind makes of these boys, bless that long hallway I'm always going through. Bless what could be mine or me. Bless the boys I wanted to be or wanted. Speaking from the den, so that you won't go looking for me, I have to tell you this. Having not eaten in a day, I went into the forest, my hunger pressed against the morning light. Sparse the cars on the winding road this early for fear of bucks, deer and their young. Someone once saw a bear at this hour, and, of course, the hunted, the despised, the wolf, who on all my walks along the same road I had never seen, until this morning. He squared me in my tracks, and in his mouth he dragged the pelt of another wolf, whose blood dripped fresh from his visible teeth. Still as the trees I was as he approached, laying at my feet the pelt. There isn't a word yet for fear and lust, so I put it on, the fur that eased into me. You must know that I ran with him when we saw headlights rounding the bend, ran from the lights. Now, amongst the loam I sleep and dream, not of my life among you, but of what fresh terror the earth will bring me next. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. So our next reader says that she is so Canem that sometimes her epigraphs are longer than her poems. Let's go with Tina Judd.
On empathy for the survivors, which hopefully will be us in 4 years, for the survivors of sexual assault. What it will sound like is birds breaking small bones against glass, the least of them, sparrows. You're about to serve dinner, and this is the scene. Blame the bird, the idiocy of windows. Try not to think of the inconvenience of blood. Try not to think of most of us hurt. The smell of it, matter about this for days. On your window, idiot, under thinning feathers, while the blood has congealed and stuck. For you, it is your glass. You have leave it for the bigger, blacker bird, the top of your tongue. So much to make sure you deserve something. You go to the, you see a bird, a dead bird. It's an eyesore. Gather as large billows in your yard at us. Beautiful. The blue sky, and then it comes. More bones and blood. Stupid birds. Idiotic pests. Red and another. Look like billions lifting into flight, and then, if you're lucky, you will find, while you work, tiny slivers of opened flesh. Tips of your fingers sing, become too much. You're careful to pick up all that you can hear, man. You're careful to pick up all that you can see. You throw everything in bags. You are careful to pick up all that you can see. You are careful to pick up all that you can see, with each barefoot trip through your bloodbath house.
So our next reader taught me how to dab properly. So important. And he's so Canem that he wakes up in a cold sweat only for his wife to tell him he does not have a poem due that morning. Please welcome my good friend Alan King.
Gluttony. Combing the bargain bin. A woman who's not your wife brushes beside you asking if the Roy Hargrove CD you're holding is any good. She's close enough for you to smell her ginger patchouli body wash. The angle she gives you in her leather bomber jacket. The one unzipped, showing a white tee retracing her athletic stomach and arms. The jacket with its collar flared. Makes her a tuberose blossom booming its honeydew-scented tune along her neckline. And your father's voice from 2 decades before warns you about gorging on everything you see. You were 16 the first time he told you, when your hunger hovered like that summer at Myrtle Beach, sisters strutting the boardwalk beneath a honey barbecue sun whose sweet light made each of them a long stretch of marinade, a chromatic scale of flavors along which your tongue was burning to play. And isn't temptation always lurking, eager to hold our common sense hostage? You tell the flower woman you're married after she points to a flyer for a Roots show and says y'all should go. When she says, are you happy? You remember a brother once asking how you could love one woman when the world's a buffet. The possibilities of pleasure laid out like jumbo crab cakes, lasagna rolls, and buffalo wings. What's gluttony, if not a symptom of our own hunger consuming us? Wasn't Jack as careless selling his sustenance for a handful of beans? You remember the story of the stalk that almost made him a hungry giant's grub? You still hear the pastor preaching about gluttons wearing the rags of drowsiness, which is how your wife found you, stumbling through the days. Your life before her was a stringless violin, a dark garden of wilted sunflowers, a camper trailer rusting against a moldy brick wall. You were once a city of busted power lines, boarded up clock towers, junked cars, and blazing drum barrel fires. What she saw in you, only her heart knows. Just like it knew you'd leave the temptress back at the listening booth, watching the automatic doors close behind you. At 16, you thought all there was to living was filling your appetite. Too young to know love is the everyday meal, that a lack of it kills quicker than the absence of food. Thank you.
Our next reader and I drove back from our second year at Canem together, and we were so excited to talk about everything that happened. We ended up in Ohio, which is the opposite direction of D.C. Yeah, it's a true story. He is so Cave Canem that whenever he steps onto his porch, he expects to see Gary Lilly playing a blues riff, smoking a cigarette. Please welcome our brother from another mother, Stephen Leva.
We had some alternative directions. It's an honor to be here. My family comes from New Orleans. I was born in New Orleans, and I'm at an age where I realized that I only return to the city of my birth for funerals. This is from my mami. It's called Ars Poetica with Zydeco. It's got an epigraph from John Kennedy Toole. Leaving New Orleans also frightened me considerably. 1. What the sea laments is return, self to self, a tenderness. Nobody dies here because nobody goes in the ground. We are not made wafers for the mud's immeasurable tongues. Communion, rather, is how I place my brown mouth on another brown mouth. Not kiss, rather accent. This too, a reaching sea returning to lament. 2. The dead must rest above ground, or every last rite would be a sea burial. Our French broken. The Gulf has always been a great pallbearer. We imbibe silence in white surf, spit libation, lick, beg this Creole, walk water, raise dead, speak storm, then remember our mouths were made empty mausoleums.
Even this Mississippi ends in toothless grin. Oh, what spirits are willing, come. Quick, quick, slow, our tender meter rises as tide on the edge of a tongue, making each bent utterance baptism. 3. The poet says, a sea of grief is not a proscenium. I watch a pelican dive for 2 fish hidden in a worn buoy's shadow. Who can tell which lived its miracle to multiply and which slid down the pelican's gullet? If not a stage, then what, poet? I've exhausted the names for God's mirror. Let me had been. I can only repeat myself. Amen. A ritual of self-portraits done year by year at the cemetery. The Monte Cristo gold lining their teeth. Shit, if these suns weren't wisps of wasted grappa pooling in the mind's cracked flask, we need a gallows humor for the presumed dead. I'd have the reaper wearing the new clothes of the emperor, naked as a coroner's slab after a body. Salut, and you, your sons, you'd leave them what? A hashtag? A sneaker's ash from burning off at first sight? Come, come, I can't even sleep in a bed anymore. You went to the hospital, I went to the sea. Only the dead leave the Chateau d'If. Exactly. Have another. I'm buying, and we've got eternity to just bullshit. Here's to the privilege of shooting a breeze. Here's to suns that never were more than a breeze. You know, I didn't scream for Mercedes as much as you think. Let's line up the shots. 1 for every minute in leg irons. And let's see, 1 for your spine. 1 for my destitute father, whose hungry belly and broken heart hung him from the rafters of despair. Certainly 1 for that dear sister of yours, who must forever speak your full name to strangers. She will never see the Isle of Elba, the Catalans, as you do now, ghosting the world through t-shirts and picket signs. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Our next reader is very simply inspired by the way people talk. Please welcome Jessica Lene.
Good evening. I couldn't come up with something about being so Canem because I'm still kind of terrified and in disbelief that I am one, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. My first poem is about where I'm from. I grew up at 307 Cross Street, Stock Island, Key West, Florida. Elizabeth Bishop, Key West, Wallace Stevens, Ernest Hemingway. It's a whole litany of poets that have poets and writers who've been there. So I just started writing about home in my 30 years, and this is called after a line in a Wallace Stevens poem. It's called "The Sea Was Not a Mask." 1. I imagine Wallace observing the Negro undertaker and all those nigger decorations, while pressed linens popping in the breeze, while hands in pockets, while thin mouth also pressed. Had he been to the cemetery on Paradise Lane? Had he seen the oiled dolls and ashen herbs before above water graves whose last names reveal nothing? 2. Ernest and Wallace's incessant suns and forever turn on a dime oceans. Perhaps I am naive, but it seems that the writers who come here describe everything in tones of unpredictable shadow, everything the perpetual blackbird. 3. That Ernest and Wallace had realized they drew us as they drew the ocean. 4. The romance of cigar smoke, tiny rock resting in the gravity of Havana's Malecon. Sometimes my great-grandmother's hands would burn from the juice of improperly cured tobacco leaves. Sometimes I awake smelling the green of it. Most times there is a bubble of empty in my stomach where I long to but know I will never again go home. 5. There is a lot of when to the idea of my home. When were you, Wallace? Then where? Were we so trapped between plumes of island light you could only see us as shadows? The land you saw was full of tropic haunting, but we were living all around you. 6. I see how we are always the problem of the places we come from, to outsiders. You see, I left scraps from my girl knees all over the black tar here. They always come to say how it is, but us know the ocean just does what it do. This is called Haze of Probability. It's a project I'm working on where I research with an astronomer, and then I try to think of what he tells me through my musings about the black woman's body throughout history. Haze of Probability. 1. The light that convulses in the sky has traveled 500,000 years to reach you now. Where and when are you? 2. Subject to collision, flesh does not consciously hold vulnerability. What you are has already made many outbursts. Your femur is made of deposits from something that already ran out of itself. 3. How things are named must be convenient. Creating a name is a force of knowing. And what will an emptiness become based on? Your intuition today. 4. Things are called in ways that make them for opening, for access. 5. How space is seen is how it becomes visible, palatable, and tangible. The brightest thing you see might not be the nearest. Oh, humans and their distance, their longing to touch. 6. It will always be an unknown variable, what there is to know. Light must first strike her skirts that far into the universe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So our next reader, when responding to my how Canem question, are you, she gave me the same answer that Ahmad did. She's so Canem, she honeymooned at Cranbrook, which I said, And she confirmed, same wedding, same honeymoon. Please welcome Cherie and Sherrod.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to mess with this. So Friday night at our house is always movie night. And we like old movies. And the problem with old movies is a lot of times you don't realize till you're sitting there with your children that there are scenes in these movies that you forgot or maybe repressed. Seeking Must Love Sidewalk Chalk after Mary Poppins, 1964. 2/3 in, there's a minstrel show. Unexpected, and yet it's impossible to resist stepping time. Fetch an umbrella and cakewalk London's Aries, crowing children from their beds for a midnight carnival. Awake every hour on the hour, I consider other mothers. Hire a night nurse, they